Hello everyone. How are you doing today? Once again, I started my video without my microphone. I keep forgetting to attach my mic, so hopefully you can hear me. My name is Makeda Valletta, also known as the Renaissance Amazon. And in case you're unfamiliar with me, I am a native New Yorker. I am an American, and I study history, culture, health. And on this page, I talk a lot about culture issues, sexuality. I have another page, The Body Scientist, where I talk about health. And I'm live on my IG, and I will repost it to my YouTube. So I'm very much into race, culture, ethnicity. I have a background in science, so genetics and all of that. And I grew up in New York City in the border of Harlem, which everybody's heard of Harlem. It's the most famous neighborhood in the world, I think. I grew up in the border of Harlem and Washington Heights. If you've never heard of Washington Heights, it is a heavily Dominican neighborhood in Upper Manhattan, okay? I grew up on Sugar Hill, to be exact. So Sugar Hill is in Harlem, and it also goes into Washington Heights. To me, it's the dopest part of Manhattan, okay? And one of the dopest parts of New York City. So if you ever come to New York, Manhattan is an island. Most of the time people are in lower Manhattan, and they don't realize that Harlem is also on the island of Manhattan. The island of Manhattan is small, so if you're in New York and you're downtown, you can easily come uptown to Harlem in the Heights. So the Heights is a heavily Dominican neighborhood, and when I was a kid, I grew up around, I heard Spanish all day, every day. Dominican Spanish, which is even harder for me to understand, okay? I can understand Mexicans very well, I can understand Colombians very well, Puerto Ricans I can understand better, but Dominicans, they speak Dominican Spanish just like Jamaicans speak Jamaican English, and it is what it is, right? But I remember as a kid being so confused because they looked just like me and my family, and they were loud Spanish, and I said to my dad, I thought that person was black, and he'd be like, they are black, they're black Dominican, and he started explaining to me like, there can be white Dominicans and Chinese Dominicans and black Dominicans, just like there can be white Americans and Chinese Americans and white Americans, right? That Dominican is a nationality, not a race. So not all Dominicans are black, not all Dominicans are white, not all Dominicans are any one thing, just like Americans, okay? Saying that someone's American is not synonymous with being white or black or anything. We have all kinds of Americans, right? And that's true of any nation. So, now, people constantly talk about, and I'm going to make this video quick. It's been on my mind a lot. Because I've been very much aware of the race issues in the Dominican Republic. I probably would not be aware of it if my dad hadn't made me aware of it. My dad was a Pan-Africanist. He was very much into black people in the diaspora, in the history. And he's the one that used to really make me aware of the racial issues in Latin America, period. And that the race issues in Latin America are worse than they are in the U.S. Some Hispanics try to deny that, but it's absolutely the case, because look at how many people did not know there were black Dominicans, or black Puerto Ricans, or black Colombians. Like, Colombia's a super black country. A lot of people don't realize that. When you turn on the Spanish channel, you see a whole bunch of white people, okay? Because they're all white Hispanics, like the white Cubans who are in Miami who are blatantly racist. I had never experienced blatant racism in my life until I went to Miami and dealt with those blatantly racist white Cubans who I cannot stand. They're corny, they're ignorant, and they're very racist, okay? And they don't even try to hide it. And I'd be damned if you be a foreigner and you're on my land looking crazy at me. Now, growing up in the Heights, never had a problem with Dominicans, and neither did my twin brother. I have a twin brother who, he's a dark-skinned, tall man. We never had a problem with a Dominican in our life, okay? My mom didn't have any issues when she was raising us. Or she'd be walking around without my dad, whatever, no issues. But my dad had a best friend who was Panamanian, a black Panamanian, and he ran a toy drive in Harlem. And they were giving gifts, Christmas gifts, to to children whose parents couldn't afford to buy them Christmas presents. And he said, when these little girls open up these little Dominican girls open up their packages, and they had black dolls, their mothers were snatching the dolls and saying, I'd rather them play with nothing than to play with, I'd rather them play with no toys than to play with a black doll. And so the black Panamanians I knew, because a lot of times black Panamanians, when they speak English, people think that they're West Indian or black American. A lot of times people don't think they speak Spanish, so a lot of Hispanic people will say really racist things in front of black Panamanians, not realizing that, right? And so this is a black Panamanian that lives on my parents' floor in New York, and he also talks about that. So I was always aware of that being there, but I grew up around Dominicans in New York and never had an issue. So whatever issues they had, it never showed itself. I've heard Dominicans a few times talk negatively about Haitians. Like there's a couple times I heard them say, "Oh, I don't want to be in the sun because I don't want to get black like a Haitian." I didn't hear that all the time, but I heard that a couple times. Now, I didn't grow up around Haitians, okay? I didn't start knowing Haitians until I was grown, okay? I didn't know any Haitians growing up. I knew Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Jamaicans, a little bit of Trinidadian. That was who was and Jews. That was who was in my circle. But as an adult, I started to know Haitians, and I adore Haitians. Some of my favorite people. One of my favorite, like they have the best art in the Caribbean, best food in the Caribbean. I have a lot of love and respect for Haitians. So for years, I wouldn't go to the Dominican Republic because I'm like, look at how they're treating Haitians. Why would I go there? And I knew Haitians who would go there. I knew Haitians who lived there. And I thought to myself, why would you do that? If I was Haitian, I would never go to DR. And I remember saying that. And then like about 20 years ago, I had a black Puerto Rican friend from New York City who was kind of light skinned. He had locks. And he went to DR. He said he got snatched up because he said, if you go there and you don't speak Spanish, they think you're Haitian. And I heard that from a girl too. Now this is 20 years ago, right? So all this was in my mind. So now you see all these people going to DR, and I just was like not thinking about it. But then I went last year because I'm like, I made some videos on my travel channel talking about this. Because I wanted to go I've been to a lot of countries, but I wanted to go to a country that had good-looking men and women, and that was the Dominican Republic, okay? The women look good, but the men look good too, okay? My neighborhood in New York City has some of the best-looking men and women in the city because Dominicans, okay? But one of the things that I noticed when I went there, and I noticed this in my neighborhood, okay? When Dominicans, a lot of them will say, not all, but a lot of them will say, oh, I'm not black, we're not black, I'm dark-skinned Indian, right? Or I'm not black, I'm Dominican. And black Americans get upset. Oh, they don't want to say they're black. They say they're not black, they're Dominican, and they're dark-skinned Indian. First of all, okay, with me, Washington Heights has the largest population of Dominicans outside the Dominican Republic. If you look on the map now, it says Little Dominican Republic, okay? My neighborhood is a Little Dominican Republic. And they look very Arawak, Taino. They have copper-complected skin. The people who come from the Americas are copper-complected, okay? People who come from the American South, the people who come from the Caribbean, South America, copper skin. And just growing up around Dominicans, I can see very clearly that a lot of them had indigenous blood because, first of all, even how they wear their hair. Hair can tell you a lot, okay? Because race is a social construct, first of all. It makes no sense. It's not scientific at all. Because race is putting people in categories based on skin color. If you put people in categories based on eye color, races will be different. If you put people in categories based on hair texture or hair color, racial categories would be different. And even putting in people in categories based on skin color, black people in America are different, a whole bunch of different colors. You have people from as dark as Viola Davis all the way to as dark as Viola Davis with her features and Nina Simone all the way over to Vanessa Williams, who's light, bright, damn near white, and has blue eyes and has nothing in common with Viola Davis. Not the hair texture, not the facial features, not the skin color. So how are they both black? Does that make any sense? Vanessa Williams, the singer, would not be considered black in Cuba. She would not be considered black in Brazil. She would not be considered black in Puerto Rico, okay? They have negra and they have morena, okay? Like, they don't even call me negra. They call me morena. Morena is brown. And negra, is black. And they say it literally, you know what I'm saying? So when they say black, they mean black, okay? They're not going to call somebody who looks like Drake black. They're not going to say that's negra, because it's not, right? Or negro. So the racial categories are different. And also, not just that, like for me, when I say black, I mean, I don't mean black American. Like, to me, black is not synonymous with American. Like, you can be a black Dominican, you could be a black Cuban, a black Jamaican, and again, all Jamaicans aren't black. You have white Jamaicans and Chinese Jamaicans and Japanese Jamaicans. So just because someone says they're Jamaican does not mean that they're black by default. Same thing with Haitians. All Haitians aren't black. Okay, that's true of every nation. So you can be a black Colombian, you can be a black American, you can be a black African, because let's also say all Africans aren't black. You have Elon Musk is African, okay, but we know he's a white African. You have East Indian Africans. You have Arab Africans, okay? But the original Africans that come from that land are black. Like the original indigenous people who come from this land are copper complected, okay? So, and when you look at the primary documents, okay, because I do read history. I read books. Unlike a lot of people these days who don't study anything, they don't read anything, they don't read scholarly texts. I'm always reading, okay? And always studying and like digging deep. And when you look at the primary documents, you see where the colonizers were talking about negras de tierra, okay, which is blacks of the land, okay, and they were talking about the blacks that they found in the Americas, okay, the indigenous people who were already dark, like the Yamasee tribe, okay, and so this whole category from Indian to black is just complicated. I'm not going to get into all that because I actually got to eat so I can catch a flight. I just had to do this real quick, but let's go back to the hair. When I walk through my neighborhood, the Dominican men, they all have dope cornrow styles, okay? Their cornrows and their parts be tight, okay? I don't see African men do that. I don't see that in Africa. When you look at even how black American women wear their hair, like these styles, I don't see that. This is very much from the Americas. When you look at little black girls in America, they all have cornrows and braids and beads and different dope cornrow styles. When I look at little girls in Africa, West Africa, South Africa, even East Africa, they have a little tiny afro. They all do. You don't see little black girls in America like that, okay? We have all these different styles and cornrows. Like little black girls, it's like the braids and the cornrows are so fly and cute. So to me, that's really something that came from over here. And that just gets overlooked. And in the Dominican Republic, I saw, like every time I saw somebody who was negro or negra, who was, black for real, they were usually Haitian. Now, I'm not going to say that there's no dark, negra Dominicans, but most of them are more moreno, okay? Dominican Republic, I've been to Cuba, I've been to Dominican Republic, I've been to Cuba 5 times, I've been to Dominican Republic, and I've been to Puerto Rico twice. Puerto Rico is very white bright, okay? There's very few brown people in Puerto Rico, let alone black. I didn't see any black, okay? When I say brown, I mean like my color. I didn't see dark-skinned black people when I was in Puerto Rico. I saw brown, and they were the minorities. Most Puerto Ricans were light bright, like J-Lo and Fat Joe. Okay? Cuba had lots of morena, lots of brown, and black, okay? So you had people in Cuba who were so dark. Like one time I went with one of my Nigerian friends, and who grew up in Nigeria, and he said he never saw people that dark in his life. They looked like they were from Sudan. Like they were literally the color black, like blacker than Wesley Snipes, like black, for real. Dark. The darkest people I've ever seen have been in Colombia and Cuba, right? But Cuba also has white people. Look at all the Cubans in Miami. White as hell. Okay? You don't see many black Cubans in Miami. It's mostly white Cubans. When you go to Cuba, you don't see that many white people because they're all in Miami. You see a lot of brown and black and a little bit of white. Cuba's a lot browner, blacker country with a little bit of white. Then there is Dominican Republic. Okay? Now, when I was in the Dominican Republic, that was like the brownest country I've been in. When I say brown, I mean morena, copper complected, bronze skin. I saw that was the dominant thing there. And most of the time when I saw somebody who was really dark, they were Haitian. Because I would ask them and, talk to them, and they were usually Haitian. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't dark Dominicans like Amara La Negra. If you don't know who Amara La Negra is, you should look her up. But, because she speaks a lot about the color issues in the Dominican Republic. But, in Cuba and Colombia has black people that's darker than that, but I didn't see a lot of that in DR. I saw a lot more brown. And I always say the sun tells the truth. When they got in the sun, their skin was just like, it was so bronze, so copper. Now, in the Dominican Republic and in my neighborhood in New York City, Dominican women wear their hair natural. I never see Dominican women with perms, forget about like, I didn't even say perms. I meant to say wigs and weaves, okay? Don't see that. I've never seen a Dominican woman with wigs and weaves. Dominican women also barely wear makeup. I don't see them wear, when I was in Dominican Republic, but the same thing was true in Cuba, and I feel like Colombia maybe too. They don't wear makeup like that, okay? Cuba, they definitely didn't wear any makeup. Dominican Republic, they didn't wear any makeup. I mean, maybe some people were a little, but they were just really naturally pretty. Same thing in this neighborhood that I live around Dominicans. They're just, and they all have natural hair. Okay, so they don't have a skin bleaching problem like Jamaica does, or Nigeria, or Senegal, and all these West African countries where they're bleaching their skin. They don't have a skin bleaching problem, and they're not wearing all these crazy wigs like a lot of Africans and Jamaicans and stuff do. They're not doing that, and so it's interesting to me. People always say, "Oh, they don't want to be black," but nobody says that about Jamaicans who over there bleaching their skin to death. And Jamaica's black as hell, okay? When I went to Jamaica, that was one of the blackest countries I went to. And when I say blackest, I'm talking about dark skin, okay? I'm talking about the negra morena, the black and brown. Now, a lot of times when people say black and brown, they're saying black meaning black Americans and brown meaning Hispanics, and that makes no sense because there are black Americans who are so many different shades, including light bright, and then there are Hispanics that are so many different shades. You have Hispanics who aren't even black at all, or brown at all. So that black and brown, when I say black and brown, I'm talking about brown, like me, and black being like my twin brother, a dark-skinned person, okay? So Jamaica was, I remember when I landed in Jamaica, I was like, I feel like I'm in Ghana. And I didn't know at the time that most of the people in Jamaica come from Ghana. I didn't know that, but I said that, okay? And that was 2006 when I landed in Jamaica. And I was like, everybody, I felt like I was in a village in Africa where everybody was the same color, dark, okay? The Jamaicans who were a little bit lighter or whatever, they're a minority, and you barely see them. But when Jamaica puts out an image to show the world, a lot of times they choose the light bright Jamaicans. They choose the Sean Pauls. We remember Patra. We remember Shabba Ranks. But then all of a sudden, it'd be like the half Chinese ones, the light ones. But when we see the track teams in Jamaica, it'd be dark-skinned black Jamaicans, okay? Not the light bright mixed ones that they love to put out there on the forefront. And Jamaica has serious color problems, okay? I knew a black dude he was a tall, handsome guy, like 6'6", 6'7", and he left Jamaica and joined the military in America because they told him he was too dark in Jamaica to be a pilot, okay? So he came to America, okay? So they were telling him that in Jamaica. Now somebody said American women wear wigs as well, not only African women. Yeah, of course. American women wear wigs too, but American women also wear a lot of natural hair. American women started the natural hair movement, okay? All these dope braids and lock styles, we started that. The whole Afro movement, the Black is Beautiful Afro, we started that, okay? And I feel like with American women, it's like half and half. There's a lot that wear wigs and stuff, and there's a lot with natural hair. I don't really see African women with natural hair. They usually, and their wigs are terrible looking, okay? Their wigs are terrible looking. Like, American women usually have better looking wigs. Like, you'll see Africans and their hair it's just like not it. The hair game in Africa is not it. I don't see a bunch of fly hairstyles. But I was, giving an example of how, because people don't accuse black Americans of not wanting to be black. So I was comparing them because I was comparing Dominicans to Africans and Jamaicans who people will say, or, they don't ever say that they don't want to be black. And so with Dominicans are not wearing wigs, okay? Their hair is very natural. I have been to Africa. I've been to Africa. And that's how I know that they're not like us, okay? We're different people, all right? And Dominicans have a lot of indigenous blood from this land, okay? And they get criticized for saying that and getting accused of not wanting to acknowledge their African roots, and that might be true with certain people. But at the same time, they do have a lot of indigenous roots. And those of us over here in the Americas who try to claim that, we get shamed. And we get told, oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. So, it's ignorant to think that you really believe they killed all the indigenous people on that island. You really believe they killed all the indigenous people in North America. That's stupid, first of all. Secondly, like if you go to Louisa, Puerto Rico, okay? Louisa, Puerto Rico, you see... It's named after a female chief, the female chief who was in charge when the colonizers came. Her name is Uwisa. They have a painting of her on the wall, and she's like my complexion. She's very copper bronze colored. That is the color of the people who came there. I mean who are from there. We have red in our skin, It's totally different. There's a lot of West Africans in Harlem. As soon as I see them, I can tell they're African. We can tell they don't look like us. Okay, the skin is different. The undertones in the skin is different. Their style, how they wear their hair is different. Okay, so getting back on topic, I just feel like this video is in defense of Dominicans. I just feel like, yes, there might be some who don't want to acknowledge African ancestry, but some of them don't have the African ancestry that people are trying to impose onto them. Just like Black Americans. There are a lot of Black Americans now who are saying that. We know the tribes in our family that come from this land. We don't have any connection to Africa. We don't know for sure that we have African blood. We just were told that. There's nobody in our family can say, oh, is this tribe, and point to that. And DNA tests aren't accurate. And it, to me, is disrespectful to acknowledge your bloodline from the land in which you live. If I live on American soil, or they live on Dominican soil, and you know you have indigenous blood from that land, of course you should claim it and speak about it. That's disrespectful. You're on this land. You want your ancestors from this land to protect you, to walk with you. Some of us have African blood, but North America, the smallest percentage of Africans got brought to North America in the slave trade. Also, I've been to Haiti too. Haiti is very Black. Okay, Haiti and Jamaica, those are the two Black outside of Africa, outside of West Africa. Haiti and Jamaica are the blackest places I've ever been. Okay, and in Haiti also everybody was dark. Now there are Haitians my color, there are Haitians light, but when I was in Haiti and I was moving around the island, everybody was the same color, and that was dark. That was Black, clearly Black. And there are indigenous people still in Haiti, and there are people who have indigenous blood in Haiti, but Haiti has a lot more African blood, and Dominican Republic has a lot more indigenous blood. They both have indigenous and African, but when you go to Haiti, it's very dark, very African. When you go to Dominican Republic, it's very indigenous, very copper complected, and there's some differences there. Okay, so the same way somebody can accuse Dominicans of, they don't want to admit their African ancestry, somebody can say Black Americans don't want to admit their American Indian ancestry. We get shunned for talking about that, and then we try to impose our idea of race onto everybody else. And so a lot of times too, when Dominicans say, because I said this earlier, when I say Black, I'm not referring to, it's not synonymous for Black American. Okay, you can be Black African, you can be a Black Cuban, a Black Jamaican, a Black Haitian, a Black Brazilian. So when I say Black, it's not synonymous with American, but I do see a lot of Black Americans who seem to want who to them being Black means American. So they'll say, oh, that person's not Black, they're Jamaican, or they're not Black, they're this, so they're not Black, because they think that you're not American. You know, it's a difference between saying you're not Black American and saying you're not Black, okay? And then even talking about who's Black, like this whole thing with Kamala Harris, which I want to do a video on that, but debating about who's Black or not is ridiculous, because, I mean, I'm going to do a video about that, because it gets I love talking about race and all this stuff, and because if you start picking apart everybody's family tree, a lot of us are mixed blood, okay? A lot of us have a lot of things in our bloodline over here. That's my train of thought. So, a lot of times when Dominicans were saying, I'm not Black, I'm Dominican, it's because they were thinking of Black as being synonymous with Black American, because there are Black Americans who do that, okay? I grew up around scholars. I grew up around historians and scholars, so we all knew. We didn't just say Black to mean Black American. We said Black African. We said Black Cuban, Black Trinidadian, Black Guyanese, because some Guyanese people are Indian like shit. And then you have Black Guyanese. So we would make that clarification, but a lot of Black Americans don't. And when they say Black, they mean Black American. So now they're telling Dominicans and other people, you're not Black. So then when someone asks them, are you Black? They're going to say, oh no, I'm not Black, I'm Dominican. That's where that comes from. And I feel like there's a lot of, because a lot of times if they say they're Black to a certain person, like if a Dominican who's my color gets on a plane and flies to the middle of the country and tells somebody they're Black, a lot of those people are going to be like, you're not Black, you Dominican, you Hispanic, you're not Black. So they might hear that from some people, and now when somebody asks them, they say, I'm not Black, I'm Dominican. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that people really try to understand, and they project a lot of things on Dominicans, okay, without even looking deeper. And everybody wants to put everybody in the Black category, like Tyler, okay? Tyler from South Africa. She identifies as colored. Again, race is a social construct. It varies depending on where you are, because everybody doesn't define race the same way. So in South Africa, they have, when they, again, just like Latin America, when they say black, they mean the Africans for real. Okay, the Africans for real. There's a lot of people who are brown who are not African, okay, descent. So then I think color makes more sense even in America, because, you know, it's like a lot of us are mixed blood. And so in South Africa, when you're part this and part East Indian, you're colored. So when Tala says that, black Americans get mad. Oh, she's saying she's colored. She don't want to say she's black. Black Americans trying to impose our way of seeing race, which is totally non-scientific. It comes from the white man of saying one drop of black blood makes you black, which is total BS, okay? That was them saying that it's not true that genetically black genes are more dominant and because you have one drop that makes you black. And no, that came from racist white man who wanted to say that if you were touched by the tar brush, if you had a drop of black in you, you're contaminated, so you're going to go in the black category, even if you don't look like it, okay? So that's where that comes from. It's totally not scientific. And so that the U.S., everybody doesn't define race the way we do. So black Americans want to impose that on everybody else and be like, oh, she doesn't want to say she's black. Tyler said she's colored. Learn about South Africa and how they categorize things. It's not the same. So it's important to understand the context. And I study culture. You don't want to just impose your way of seeing things on other people, okay? And race is a complex topic. I'm going to do a video about Kamala and whether or not she's black. Okay, so look out for that. And I'm in Harlem right now. I'm getting ready to head back to Chicago. The DNC is going down next week on Monday. And the protests start this weekend, so I want to be in the mix and see what's going on. And I am going to do a video about Kamala. So yeah, basically Dominicans, never had a problem with them. Most of them are brown, copper-complected, moreno. The women all have natural hair. I've never seen a Dominican woman in Dominican Republic or in New York that had a weave or a wig or some. No, they be having their curly hair, they be having afros, they be having braids, they have their natural hair. The men, beautiful hair. The men have all kinds of beautiful cornrows. First of all, this idiot that keeps writing to me, you don't have a scientific background. You don't have a background in genetics, okay?
He does maintain his innocence.
I do have a background in genetics, and that's not true, okay? So anyhow, the Dominican men, cornrows be tight, designs be tight. I only see braids like that from the Americas, from Puerto Rico, from Dominican Republic. The best hair braiders in New York are the Caribbeans. Okay, New York was the mecca for black hair. The best locticians, and actually the woman who does my hair in Chicago, she's Jamaican, Cuban, and Black American. Okay, so it's the Caribbeans and the Black Americans. Those of us in the Americas braid better. Everybody knows in Harlem on 125th Street, where all the Africans are, who braid your hair. We all know not to let them braid your hair because that make you go bald. They're not the best braiders. Okay, the best braiders be the Caribbeans and the Americans. And our braided styles are different, okay? So anyhow, I need to run. I might do a part 2 of this. I'm sure I'm probably going to think of things that I meant to say that I didn't. Please feel free to rate your comments, share the video, follow me on Instagram at _Renaissance_Amazon, and follow me on YouTube at the Renaissance Amazon, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.